Hey everyone, welcome back. In this video, we're going to be talking about five common cognitive distortions that people often have when they're interacting with others, and also the ways that you can reframe those distortions to just be more rational. Another way to
it's another way of rational emotive behavioral therapy, which is a favorite of mine.
Yeah, and for those of you who are familiar with these terms, you could also think about it as ways where you're commonly acting from your ego and how to start acting from your higher self. That's how I prefer to look at it.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing.
It's transferable.
Yeah, when you're working from your ego, you're working from cognitive distortions. When you're working from your higher self, you're working from rational thoughts and appreciation of context, compassion. Yeah. So with that being said, the first one is when you're operating from this cognitive distortion of people's behavior is how they feel about you.
Yeah, that's when we typically take it super personally and get pissed off and question ourselves inside and say, what did I do to make them so angry?
Yep.
Instead of the rational way of looking at it and it's saying something about themselves, right?
Yeah.
The way that people behave is how they see things inside of themselves.
Yeah, and I'll give a personal example for this one, which is me. Whenever I get upset at myself, I will usually project how I feel about myself onto Brianna. And so it's just one of the things in our relationship that we work on navigating is that, like, if I'm being short and basically a dick to her, first of all, I need to work on not projecting, me being upset because of things going on in my internal world. I need to work on not projecting that onto her. But for this lesson, it's her understanding that when I act like that, instead of saying like, why don't you like me? Why are you being mean to me? Asking, what is going on with you right now that's leading you to act in this way?
Well, I used to act from my ego a lot when I was younger and very irrational. And the reason why I'm so good at this now is because I've practiced for years reframing this stuff. And I used to take it personally. I'd be like, what did I do to make them so angry at me when it's usually nothing about me?
Yeah.
Right. And so that helps us not explode into a huge.
Well, it helps just defuse any potential argument because
I'm like, okay, I see you're feeling that way. It's a reflection of your inner world and not me. And so then I'm not all pissed off and just one of us has to work through her.
Yeah, exactly. And here's just one more example before we move on to the next one, as an analogy. Imagine that you're driving down the freeway and someone cuts you off and you're just like, like you fucking idiot, blah, blah, blah.
But then out the window.
Yeah. But then, then picture picture them stopping. You both stop, get out of the car and they're like, hey, I'm sorry that I did that. I know I was acting in this way, but I'm currently on my way to the hospital with my father in the back seat who's having a heart attack. And suddenly your entire perception of the experience changes. Exactly. If you had that information when they actually cut you off, you'd be like, oh, let me slow down, go, go, go. Let me get out of your way. Let me facilitate.
Most nice humans.
Right? Yeah. But the point is that just the point of that example is to emphasize how just having information can change your entire perspective on the same exact event. And so when you're working with this type of reframing, if you can just get it in your head, get that information that they're going through something, it can just change your entire response to them,
towards
everything. And it might even help them,
Oh, it always helps, right?
Yeah.
Just ask yourself, if someone gets pissed off at you when you're mad at yourself, do you not get more mad?
Yeah.
At the world and yourself even more. If someone approaches you with compassion and is like, oh my God, you're so hard on yourself, I'm going to offer you love.
Yeah.
Doesn't that diffuse it?
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so that one went a little long. So second one, when you think boundaries of another person are offensive to you or the other person being selfish. And the right way to think about this is that boundaries are there for every person to protect their own energy.
Yeah. I have zero fucking qualms about setting boundaries. And it has been my experience that a lot of people get offended
Yeah.
by my boundaries. And I'm like, you don't get to decide what I can tolerate. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
sit down
Yeah.
and understand that not everything needs to filter around you.
Yeah.
Like, that's not fair to
Yeah.
anyone. Like, you don't know what people are going through in their personal life. Like, you can't force your opinions and your emotional states on another human. And that's what boundaries are for, to protect your energy, right?
Yeah. And so again, just like related to the first one, if someone sets a boundary with you, approach the situation as, they have reasons for setting those boundaries. I don't know what those reasons are, but they have reasons. And, be like empathize with them.
Compassionate.
Yeah, be more compassionate. Okay. So yeah, that's all we wanted to say about that one. The next one would be that when things don't go your way, you yell, complain, shut down, or otherwise just like deal with them in a more unproductive way that usually just makes the situation worse than it actually is. And the way you can reframe it is to, at the risk of kind of being cliche, it would be like, look for the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I think this one an example for this one is a breakup, right? Like, if someone wanted to break up with you, and instead of losing your fucking shit and trying to slash their tires or burning their house down, like, I won't say that example, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You can say, okay, well, maybe they just weren't the person for me.
Yeah.
And trust that the person for you is going to appear and you're going to attract them.
Yeah, that one's hard. Sorry, but I mean, you picked like a really hard example. Like, breakup.
It's true.
Yeah, it's 100% true. But yeah,
it's very irrational to lose your shit over someone else's decisions.
yeah, exactly. And the thing with this one is to just remember that it's better to start now than never. So if a bad event happened to you and you've been letting it kind of spiral and get the best of you, that doesn't mean there's no point in trusting that you're going to find a new path soon.
Yeah, and I want to explain something there too. Like, we are all wired to react irrationally. Like, that is innate in us. That is our primitive mind trying to protect us. It does not mean you're a flawed human. Like, I have been working on this for well over a decade. And there is light at the end of the tunnel when you reframe this shit. And the reason why we can reframe it is because we have a prefrontal cortex, right?
Yeah.
We're evolved.
Yeah.
We're not subject to our primal desires and our primal reactions.
Yeah, exactly. So, stay optimistic, so to speak. Look at the glass as half full rather than half empty. Or better yet, look at it as completely full and just acknowledge that part of that is liquid and part of that's gas. Yeah. Okay. I was going to move on to the next one.
Yeah, I was too.
Oh, okay. This one's you then.
The tolerance for other people's ideas, right? Having zero tolerance for them losing your shit when someone has an idea that you disagree with.
Yeah, just not respecting that people have viewpoints that differ from you, thinking that everyone who doesn't think the same way you do is dumb. Or, is just uninformed or whatever. Basically thinking that you somehow know, the correct idea for anything.
Yeah, outside of like a few things like gravity and the world being round, it's hard when things are filtered through perspectives to think that you're like 100% correct.
Yeah, but I mean, even then, like, I don't know, you could get into a lot of philosophical debates about various things, but yeah, there are very few things that we know to be actual truths. I mean, there's a reason why a lot of things that are, commonly accepted today are theories rather than laws or truths, so to speak, yeah. Right? So like,
I was having this discussion with someone on Twitter the other day.
Yeah, like gravity. Gravity isn't a law. It's not a truth. It's gravitational theory. It's because the concept of gravity has supporting evidence from a lot of different like kind of lines of evidence, I guess. and it functions as an explanation for why we observe certain phenomena in the natural environment. That doesn't mean it's 100% absolute. Like 2 plus 2 in math equals 4. That's an absolute truth, right?
Not if you talk to the woke folk.
Right. But I mean, ignoring them, like 2 plus 2 equals 4.
That's Eurocentric.
Math is something where things can actually be proven. Things like gravitational theory, it's just a theory, and that's for a reason.
Well, a lot of things that are considered laws in science too aren't technically laws either. They're theories.
Yes. Yeah, no, I agree with that as well. But the point here is that very few things are actual truths, and people are going to have different perspectives on certain things. And just because they think of something in a different way doesn't mean they're dumb or stupid. It could just mean that they're looking at things through a different lens than you.
Well, this is seen with religion, right? Like the same Bible is read by multiple people, and yet they break off in different religions because of different perspectives, right?
Yeah. Yeah, or even the different religions altogether. Like they worship different gods, they have,
deities.
Different, they just have different aspects. But does that mean any one religion is more right than the other? I mean, they all think that what they believe is the right way, but it's like, not really. I mean, even atheists, it's like, that's a belief. Not believing in something is a belief. So, I mean, there's just different ways of looking at things. And what's important to remember is that you need to just respect what other people believe. You don't need to agree with it, but being intolerant of their beliefs isn't going to get you anywhere.
Yeah, and intolerance is definitely, I think, people misuse that term when someone just doesn't agree with them, when intolerance is like seen when people lose their fucking shit and don't want to hear and want to control your outlook.
Yeah, here's an example. Some people want to like silence. They want to crush people's ability to speak freely on topics. And that's intolerance. You can't tolerate other people voicing their opinions. That is intolerance. Simply disagreeing with them, but respecting and even defending their right to have an opinion, that's tolerance.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Anyway, the last one would be that your worth is created through external validation rather than internal validation. And working from your higher self is meaning that you validate yourself with your own beliefs and actions. You don't need other people telling you, what's good about you for you to feel loved.
And that's a big one too that I see with a lot of people. They're like, I need this validation from you. And I'm like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
Remember when you used to say that when we first like met too, you're like, my love language is validation, words of affirmation. And I'm like, why? Like, validate yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Remember we had that conversation a lot in the beginning?
Yes. But I also, because we've done things on love languages, and it's important to make a distinction here. There's a difference between getting your self-worth from a love language like words of affirmation and just acknowledging that words of affirmation are what let you know the other person cares about you. So there's a difference, right? Because one is what is your self-worth, and the other is how do you know another individual cares about you? They're two completely separate topics. And so that's something to be on the lookout for, is that like, if you need someone to like tell you how amazing you are,
or that you're doing good, like that's another one.
That's external validation.
I'm not a fan of that. And I like, that's just part of my personality. Yeah. Like I hate giving external validation because I'm like, this is making you weaker. Yeah. Like that's my thought process, is like, I don't want to do this because it's making you weaker. Yeah. We all need validation to a certain extent, like you're saying in your example, like that's.
But I wouldn't even call it validation though. I would call it's how someone is showing that they care about you. And it is nuanced, but it's an important one because the difference is your self-worth. Where do you derive your self-worth? I can get all the self-worth I want from inside me. It still feels good to know that she loves me and that she tells me she loves me, right? It's going to make me happier when I know that she cares about me and that when she
But
shows
you won't
me that.
crumble without it.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
that's
but
very clear.
if she doesn't do that, I don't think I'm a lesser human because of it.
Like,
that's
it doesn't
the
go
difference.
into a depressive state. Or
That's the difference, right? It's just, it's nice to have, but it's not defining who I am as a person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Beautiful. All right. Well, if you like the content of this video, great. That's what we're trying to do. Please give the video a like, share it with someone who you think would benefit from listening to this information. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks, everyone.